Welcome to Bahrain.
This is what you get with government backing, £100 million and a determination to get the job done. Bahrain's international circuit is ready for its first race day. Hold on a moment though. Rain in Bahrain? Oh yes, this is the scene on race day. Not in the brochure, this stuff. 30-mile-an-hour winds, sandstorms. You couldn't see the place from barely 100 metres this morning. And crosswinds for Formula One cars are really evil. It is changing by the minute, and it is not clever. We had a real storm a moment ago. It's dry at the moment. April the 4th has always been Bahrain's deadline day, and they have made it. 04, 04, 04, the biggest sporting day in this little kingdom's history. A fantastic achievement to build this facility in record quick time, and now Bahrain finds itself very much in the spotlight.
The Kingdom of Bahrain is made up of 33 different islands, the largest of which is home to the capital city, Manama, together with most of the country's 650,000 population. Bahrain was a British protectorate until 1968, when the late king oversaw a smooth transition to independence. The country is now one of the most liberal and democratic of all the Gulf states. This was traditionally a seafaring nation. For thousands of years, pearl diving was the principal trade. But that all changed in 1932, when Bahrain became the first Gulf state to start exploiting its oil resources. The vast revenues produced have been wisely invested in business initiatives to secure the long-term stability of the country. Tourism is now a rapidly growing industry. The country welcomes more than 3 million visitors each year. Bahrain has also become the financial hub of the Middle East and boasts the region's largest concentration of banks and financial institutions.
But it's here in Bahrain's traditional market, the souk, where the real business happens. Look at the colour of this saffron, the smells of the chili, paprika and garlic. And it really sums up Bahrain, I think. This place is colourful, vibrant and friendly.
Bahrain's location attracts traders from all over the Gulf. There's also a big influence here from the Indian subcontinent. The architecture of the buildings and mosques retain their classic old Arabian charm. History in this desert is everywhere. An area in South Bahrain is reputed to be the original site of the Garden of Eden. The race has already boosted travel to the area. Over 30 extra flights have been laid on. Passenger numbers have swelled by 60%. There's plenty of money in these oil-rich countries, and modern Bahrain has all the top-rate shopping facilities. Falconry has long been part of Bahrain's sporting history, but it's the lure of the Arabian horse that fills the back pages here. Racing is this country's top pastime.
Today's conditions could make it very, very tricky for the cars, but the overall facility, Mark, is brilliant.
Very impressive. Everybody down the pit lane is very happy, Jim. The drivers, I think, are very, very happy with the circuit indeed. A couple of little slow corners there, which might cause a few problems for them, but overall, thumbs up.
People back home watching saying, hold on a minute, you're in the middle of the desert. What about the sand? They've taken special procedures about it, haven't they?
They've done a lot of work with trying to not let that sand go onto the circuit. They've actually solidified the sand around the track. So far, so good. Seems to be working. But as the wind builds up, we are getting some of that dust.
Yeah, we're not sure. The race is off, by the way, 12:30 your time. You know, this place really put the likes of Athens and Wembley to shame. 16 months ago, all there was here was an old camel farm. Ted Kravitz reports.
It sounded like Mission Impossible, build a state-of-the-art Grand Prix track in the middle of the desert. But 480 days and £100 million later, Bahrain has done it.
I saw the first cars running from the Oasis grandstand, and the drivers make a lot of mistakes, and this is not bad. This is very good. They have to learn the circuit.
People were getting worried, are we going to get it in time or not? So that was a bit frustrating for us, but the engineers ensured us that it's going to be on time, so we trusted them.
Formula 1 drivers have to decide it's a good circuit or not a good circuit, but the main thing, I think, it has to create or make possible interesting races.
It's very interesting, Mark, doesn't it, when you stray off the racing line, because it's very, very mucky.
Very, very dusty, a lot of stones out there, a lot of sand, obviously. So when you do go offline, it's an issue when you come back on, because you bring all that muck back on the circuit.
A couple of days ago, we were all wondering about what was happening to the tyres. 3 tyres, including David Coulthard's, got shredded, and it was a rogue razor-sharp drain, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of guys were suffering with tyre failures, and it seemed to be picked up by running over one of the drains on the circuit. They've actually worked and put those and corrected those drains, but the problem is now they're actually filled over. So if it does rain, we've got a bigger problem.
That's right. That's race controller Charlie Whiting we saw there inspecting the drains. I'm sure he really enjoyed that. Prince Andrew has been here very much from the start. He was here, 16 months ago, taking part in the opening ceremony for the Bahrain International Circuit. He actually helped lay the foundation stone as well, while Prince Andrew has been sitting down and chatting to Martin Brundle.
You broke ground here with the Crown Prince just 16 months ago. Must be amazing to show up here and see it looking like this.
When I last came here, as you say, 16 months ago, there was just a flat piece of ground, bit of desert, and a tent, and a spade, and we dug a hole and put a stone in it. And we were then asked if we would like to drive around the circuit, which they'd very kindly marked out with the odd cone and piece of tape. So we drove around in what I can only describe as the most remarkable circumstances. It was, in fact, the Crown Prince's brother's Range Rover, and I'm not sure whether the company had to have it back at the end of it. It was so rough at the end of that race, but it was at that moment. But it was an extraordinary moment to see this, and I did not believe in 16 months they'd be able to produce what is the premier track in the world, as far as I can see. It's just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, sensational effort. Any other particular reason why you're visiting this Grand Prix?
Well, actually, the Crown Prince on that particular day said, well, he insisted that if it was at all possible that I should come back and see it on the day that the race was run. I'm here as the UK Special Representative for International Trade and Investment in the region, and I've been out for the last 10 days in various countries. And the opportunity to finish in Bahrain, we've managed to work our programme so that I'm here for the race. Absolutely fantastic.
It is fantastic. The locals, though, are very, very embarrassed about the weather today. Right, let's get you right up to date with qualifying, shall we? The Ferraris and BMW Williams on the front 2 rows, but really more pain for McLaren.
Kimi Raikkonen has admitted that his championship chances are now a long shot. He hasn't finished a race this year, and that run of bad luck continued with an engine failure on Friday, meaning he'd have to drop 10 places on the grid. McLaren chose not to bother completing his qualifying lap, as with that penalty he'd be at the back anyway. David Coulthard does start 10th, but for Kimi this weekend is effectively a write-off, and McLaren's next improvements are 2 races away.
It's not going as well as we're hoping, but I cannot do anything else than try to drive as fast as I can.
I anticipate, we'll have a stronger latter part of the season, but of course we don't want to wait that long. We're working hard, and our next performance step will probably be Spain. Until then, we just have to grin and bear it.
Joining Kimi in the back of the grid club will be Nick Heidfeld and Minardi's Zsolt Baumgartner, who also had to change their Ford Cosworth engines. Jensen Button might have been out-qualified by his teammate, but he tends to race better than Sato, so another podium could well be on the cards this afternoon. Having looked strong all weekend, Williams were annoyed not to have made the front row. If the cars have more fuel on board than the Ferraris, then they're in good shape. But it's the first time this year that the not-so-matey teammates are starting together on the grid.
Always going to be exciting when our 2 drivers are on the same row alongside each other. But I'm sure Frank will be having a word with both of them, telling them that the enemy is ahead and behind.
So it was left to Michael Schumacher to take advantage of Williams' problems and grab another pole. But Ferrari have a problem with their brakes here. They underestimated how tough this track would be and swapped brake suppliers twice before settling on their original Brembo pads and discs. Williams know this and will be trying to push the Ferraris into a brake failure.
The braking has actually proven to be a bit harder than we expected. And we tried a different type, but it's not as consistent. So he was happier to stay with a consistent brake, even if it's fading a little bit. And we don't have any issues with wear, but the drivers don't like it fading because they have to push harder. It's a little bit more fatiguing, but I don't think that's a problem that Michael will have.
You got the measure of the Williams in qualifying. How do you think you're going to measure up in race pace?
Well, we have seen in Malaysia we were able to fight with them in the race, so I guess we have a similar condition.
We're first and second, surprised but happy, and hopefully starting offline tomorrow won't set me back too much, and I give Michael a run for his money.
We saw you pushing Michael very hard at the last race. Are you expecting to be in a position to do the same again this weekend?
Don't know, it'd be nice if we could. I wouldn't mind.
What's your feeling though?
I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be very hard.
Very pleased. Basically, I'm very pleased. We had no technical problem over the weekend, so we are able to do lots of program we wanted. And finally, I believe our strategy is very strong.
It has been a good weekend so far. We've spent more time talking to marshals than we have driving the circuit, but you know, that's just the way sometimes the Grand Prix weekend goes. So just got to take what we have now and try and convert it into some good points.
We've got a fantastic facility here, but we are in the middle of the desert. The downside for us now, we've had dust storms, big winds, big gusts. These conditions now are going to be completely different for those guys as they roll into turn one. It's an all-Ferrari front row. Michael Schumacher takes his 58th pole position, even with a couple of mistakes on his lap. Rubens Barrichello alongside. The BMW Williams on the second row, but some disappointment for them. Sato, impressive, out-qualifies Button. Great performance for the BAR team. Olivier Panis and D'Amato in the Toyota team progressing very well. DC in the all-familiar middle grid position, 1.5 down on the front row. Christian Klein impressive against Mark Webber. Then we go on to Alonso. Big problems in the Renault, lots of issues with his brakes, 16th position. Heidfeld, engine penalty, moves him down the grid. But the big name, Kimi Räikkönen, 10 slots down with an engine change. He then goes to the back of the grid with more fuel and fresh tyres.
Quick cars down the back, changeable conditions. This could be very tasty. As always, we appreciate your input. You can email us at formula1@north1tv.com if you want to send us a text F1 plus the message to 86188. And Louise is there for Ask the Team this week on the ITV F1 website, itv.com/F1. Well, as Mark was saying, these conditions really have changed completely here in Bahrain on race day, and there's been some frantic last-minute thinking up and down the pit lane.
Well, I think it affects a lot because today is really, really windy, and I think we have a lot of sand on the track. I think today was a very tricky race. I mean, we need to stay on the line. I think it's quite really difficult today for everybody else.
The uncertainty of the conditions is always a great leveler, and it always throws up A, a surprise winner, and B, it always invariably makes a very exciting race.
The wind's gone totally 180, so yesterday we had quite a big headwind on the front straight, and now we've got a big stonking tailwind, so I think even some of the gear ratios for some people might be a little bit on the edge. So engines could be hanging up there in the limiter a little bit. Also, I mean, the wind, these cars don't like huge winds really in high-speed corners, and also some of the braking stability is an issue. So, yeah, I mean, a little bit of rain, a little bit of a mixed event won't be too bad for us anyway. I hope that we might be able to get something out of it.
I think we're going to see all sorts of exciting things today. We've got a lot of problems. We've got problems with the weather. I think most people have problems with the brakes. We've got problems with sand blowing around. It should be an exciting race.
I'm sure it will be. The thing is, people like Pat Simmons, they came here desperate for any sort of information, but now it's a whole new game and they're lacking that data.
Exactly. The weather has really thrown in a lot of variables, and some of the biggest issue, you listen to some of the guys they're driving, if you're in one of these Formula 1 cars, Jim, they are very light. Yes, they've got downforce, but with a crosswind of 30, 40 miles an hour, it will move you across the road some 3 or 4 feet, and that's a big problem trying to react to that.
Is this a sort of conditions, Mark, really, that you as a driver will look at and say, I don't fancy this at all. This is the sort of thing I really don't want to drive in.
Well, especially with the dust and the sand, because that really is a new condition for most of these modern-day Formula One drivers. We don't normally race in the desert, but rightly or wrongly, it's going to stay dry or it's going to rain. All those in-between conditions are not fanciable for any of the drivers.
I think, did you have an experience once at Silverstone with a bit of a gust there?
Yeah, it put me clean off the circuit, but we won't talk about that, Jim.
I drove Eddie Jordan to the circuit today, and I've never come across a worse backseat driver, I'd have to say. I nearly chucked him out in the desert. But he was quite hopeful. We arrived here, you literally couldn't see the circuit 100 metres away, and he was saying this could just suit us.
Well, the lower teams, normally if you have a wet condition race, it hides a lot of the issues with those cars. So sometimes a wet race, the driver gets a bit of confidence. His car may not be great in dry conditions. The wet hides those problems.
Great excitement, though, hopefully, for everybody out there watching.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, I'm really hopeful that we do have a little bit of these variable conditions. It's going to put a lot into the mix.
OK, well, let's go and have a word with Alan McNish, shall we?
Yes, Alan, making a welcome return to the paddock. We've just been having a bit of a chat about the weather conditions today. What do you think of them? Is it going to throw up a few surprises for the drivers?
I think the main thing that's going to throw up the surprises is the dust on the circuit, which will hopefully create a few mistakes. We saw that yesterday in qualifying, even with Alonso. And so that's going to probably be the first corner. Quite exciting.
Are you missing Formula One?
You can't help but miss it. You know, that's one of the reasons I'm here. It's a fantastic new venue. And, you know, when you hear the engines starting up and they're doing 19,000 revs, it gives a buzz.
But you've still been very successful behind the wheel of a racing car of late, I understand.
You know, we had a very good return to sports cars, and coming back with the victory was a nice way to do it. Obviously, it's nice to race, but to be wheel to wheel and then be on the winner's podium was an excellent result.
Well done for that. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Well, sadly, Alan McNish not driving in Formula One this season, just two British drivers, David Coulthard and Jensen Button, and we all are hoping that Jensen might just make it to the podium again. And I believe you might just experience one or two problems with vision. We'll be right back. Be right back with us very shortly. I hope you can still hear me loud and clear. We really did have high hopes for Jensen Button after his podium in Sepang and a super Saturday morning as well, but sadly those hopes did not materialise. Louise Goodman has more.
Jensen Button. Great day.
One of the finest of his Formula One career, in fact, and it looked like Jensen could be on a fast track to the podium again here in Bahrain. He was quickest in both free practice sessions on Saturday morning, and the team was confident he'd maintain that form going into qualifying. So it was a somewhat deflated Jensen who ended the session in P6.
Well, it's great to be disappointed with sixth position. You know, we're fifth and sixth, the best qualifying the team's ever had. But it just, I had very low grip, and I think I maybe tried to overcompensate for that and pushing it a little bit hard in a couple of corners and lost some time.
Jensen's loss was Takuma Sato's gain. A clear run saw him out qualifying his teammate, and that was a double blow for the man who was expecting a clear run to the first corner.
I thought I'd be on the front row, if not P1.
That did?
Yeah, but didn't happen. But it doesn't matter because you know we've got a very good car in race trim, and I finished on the podium from P6 in the last race.
And you never know, Jensen Button might just make it to the podium again. Fifth, by the way, is Sato's best ever. We will be right back to drive you round with Michael Schumacher's Ferrari.
Bridgestone.
You are back with us in Bahrain. We're counting down to the start of the Bahrain Grand Prix, just over 20 minutes away. If you're just joining us, welcome here on ITV1. We've had all sorts of weather this morning. The temperature has dropped considerably. Lots of high winds as well, and a fair bit of rain in the air, and some last-minute preparations for all the teams. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello up front in the Ferraris. I just can't tell you how much things have changed at the moment on this race day. And there's a fair amount of consternation. McLaren have had a really miserable time. Kimi Raikkonen, who pushed Michael Schumacher so close last year, has not scored a point, and he's unlikely to score today because he's got to start right down on the back of the grid in 19th place after an engine change. Jackie Stewart here as well. And just to say, we do apologise if you're having one or two problems seeing our pictures from Bahrain. Jackie Stewart in the thick of things as always, and Mark Blundell with me now. Mark, just looking, there's the air temp, 31 degrees, 29 degrees on the track, and it just seems to me that everyone's playing the guessing game at the moment.
Well, it's going to be a guessing game, Jim, because, you know, nobody's got any data of this circuit. It's a brand new circuit, as we all know. At the moment, though, what we're doing, we're playing into the hands of Bridgestone, because those track temperatures are quite cool in consideration to what we've had the last 2 days. The Michelin runners want the strong temperatures. They want that track temp. This guy here, Eddie Jordan in particular, wants a bit of rain because he thinks it's going to be a leveller, and you'd have to agree with him. And
there's a Takuma Sato who out-qualified Jensen Button, and a bit of a wild reputation Takuma Sato has got, but he's quick when things go well for him, and he's in good shape for this Grand Prix.
Sato's done a great job over the course of the weekend so far. His weakness has sometimes been a little bit in the race, although we saw a great race from him last year when he joined the team there in Suzuka. The situation BIR, though, they are progressing. They are definitely a team to be reckoned with.
The McLaren hierarchy there, Mario Ilian and Norbert Haug, and I have to say I got a little bit of a cracking by saying that one or two engines had expired, and then McLaren insists that their engines are absolutely fine, but they're having a very tough weekend, and it's likely to continue in the race, I think.
Well, they have got a lot of issues. That was Mr. Hubert, who's actually the big boss of Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, really?
So, you know, the big wheels are in town and they need to deliver. But this is a man here, Jensen Button, who had a great race last time out in Malaysia. A lot of confidence from Jensen, a little bit of disappointment. He thought he would be a little bit stronger on the position of grid, but Kimi Raikkonen is a man now with a lot of thought process going on.
It's a real interesting shot, that, isn't it? A bit of Button and a bit of Raikkonen. One's confidence absolutely soaring, and the other one through the floor, really.
Well, I don't know whether it's through the floor at this point, Jim. That is a very strong individual. Raikkonen's got a strong mind, and you know, he's in 19th. Let's see whether the McLaren strategy is going to work out.
I think we can check in with Ted Kravitz down there on the grid.
Yes, Jim, there's a very interesting scene here at the back of David Coulthard's car. It looks like he's dropped a load of oil on the way from the paddock and the grid onto the grid. So here it is. They've got a load of oil behind his car. It's very unusual. You've got to hope that there's nothing wrong with the engine. Just to dump a load of oil out the end of the engine like that. And of course, Mercedes have had problems here this weekend. Hopefully, it's nothing special. We were going to see if Ron Dennis is around. He is. Ron, is this okay? Anything to worry about?
Well, there's a regulation that says you can't change anything on the track surface, but we got a dispensation from the FIA because a puddle of oil's come out of a previous car. This is the last race.
So it's not off David's car?
No, it's not from David's car, but it's right where the rear wheels stop. So we're just trying to get rid of the lubricant, as it were.
Well, that's good. And David's chances today, he's got a solid chance of a good handful of points, hasn't he?
Well, you come to every race with the intention of winning it, but these grid positions are a bit challenging. I think Kimi's race is going to be interesting. David's, you know, hopefully we'll surprise a few people. We've been conservative on our strategy, so let's see how it works out.
And very briefly, it's just started raining yet again. It seems on and off every sort of 5 minutes it starts raining again.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a couple of the Michelin, I think 3 of the Michelin runners on the softer option, and that might play to them. So it'd be interesting to see how they go. But you know, it's still going to be a challenging race no matter what.
Thanks, Ron. Back to you, Jim.
Thanks very much indeed, Ted. Good to hear from Ron Dennis there that oil did not come from David Coulthard's car. Goodness me, McLaren have enough problems as things stand. We will be right back. You're back with us at the Bahrain Grand Prix. just to say apologies from all of us here if one or two things that we're saying have not been corresponding with the pictures coming out of your telly. Perhaps one or two particles of sand from the sandstorm getting in one or two of our systems here. It's going to be just over 10 minutes to go to a really exciting race. There's smiles from the BAR team and David Richards, and real encouragement for David Richards, for BAR, for Jensen Button, and the way they've gone this season. And they say it's in their capacity to go even faster, Mark Blundell.
Well, I think they're all very happy at the moment, Jim, and there's a lot of guys in the team who are looking for some more progress, and very quickly as well. The good thing is that Honda are putting in a lot of effort, and definitely that seems to be making some inroads into their performance.
Michael Schumacher, 20 out of 20 so far, the main man on pole here once again. And but Montoya saying he's going to really charge. It's a kilometre first straight. He's going to really charge off the line and perhaps try and nick something into that first corner. Can you see that happening?
Well, I can see a lot of things happening, and that is a possibility, most definitely. And Montoya is already fired up. We know that he's not a man to be messed about with when it comes into the first turn or any corner, to talk quite frankly. Schumacher will be well aware of it. We know they had some fun and games over the last couple of days, some psychology stuff going on. And let's see whether the Michelin's BMW Williams is capable of beating the Ferrari.
How about Ralph Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya? Patrick Head, the man who has to sort of keep the two drivers vaguely getting on side by side. And I think he said to them, hey guys, your opposition's behind and in front, it's not next to you.
Well, there's a lot of infighting going on. We know that there's no love lost between those two guys. As much as what the team say that everything is quite stable there, I think Ralph Schumacher and Montoya are not exactly dinner party buddies.
I think we can now hear from Martin down in the pit lane there. Martin.
Thank you, Jim. Sorry about these pictures, ladies and gentlemen. I was hoping to do a grid walk for you today, but we have some problems, and now I'm in vision, apparently. Bahrain, as they call it here, is named after two seas, if you translate it, because there's a saltwater sea and then fresh water underneath. And today there's some more water coming out of the sky. I asked some local people yesterday, were they expecting rain? They said yes, sometime around December, but it's happened today. Let's have a poke around in here and see who we can find that we can have a word with. Maybe the Crown Prince is around. Where is the Crown Prince? I'd like to have a quick word with him. Ah, yes, there he is. Sir, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
You okay? Hello, Bernie. And good to see you again. I'll catch up with you later. What a wonderful facility, yes?
Yes, I hope the weather is not as bad as in Barcelona, you remember?
Yeah, I do indeed. It's great to see you again. And let me just try and catch a word. Hello, sir. Very pleased to meet you. That's King Abdullah of Jordan, apparently. So we seem to be slightly sidetracked. Are you with me, Andy? Good. How are you, sir? So it's finally happened then. Here we are.
Over dinner, you were doubtful, but now it's finally happened. So I'm so glad that you're all here. We're so proud of everybody involved, and thank you very much to everybody who supported us.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, I've been hanging around Formula One now for 22 years. We've never had this kind of a better welcome than this. It's been really tremendous, and what a facility. But the weather looks like it could throw quite a double six today.
Very interesting. It's going to be a wonderful race, and thank you for being here.
Okay, good to see you. I know I'm holding you up a little bit. I'll catch you all later on. I need to hear, apparently there's some drivers on this grid, believe it or not. And let's see, I need to make a note of all those kings I've just met, but I want to hear what the track's actually like from a driver's perspective, because we're getting real late here. We've got two drivers here, an old-timer and a man sitting on the front of the grid. And can I just have a quick word, Rubens? What is the track like? I saw in the Formula BMW race sort of a mulch of water and sand. What does it feel like out there?
Oh, it's a little bit slippery, but unfortunately we were saving fuel to the grid, so we don't know really how grippy it is. But we find out in a couple of minutes, but it's a little bit slippier than Friday and Saturday.
So it's a magical mystery tour down to turn one. Do you think this will suit Michelin or Bridgestone?
To be honest with you, I'm not worried with anything. I think there was a bit of oil here from the historic Formula Ones, and that's the only thing that worries me.
On your grid slot from an earlier race, I need to let you get on because we're running quite late today. Good luck. Let's see. Here's George Lucas. He's the director of. Maybe have a quick word with you, director of Star Wars. Your first time on a grid?
No, I don't think so. I've been a fan for many, many years. I've driven mostly, local things in California. But I've been to a few races, been to a few Grand Prix. I love it. It's fantastic here.
All right, ever fancy doing a Grand Prix? Ever fancy doing a Grand Prix movie?
No, I've had a few opportunities, but I love watching them, and I love sponsoring them, and I love driving in them, but making movies about them doesn't interest me much.
Okay, thanks for your time. Jim, back to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Those Ferraris, Mark Blundell, really are going to take some catching. But interesting listening to Rubens Barrichello. He always chats to us nicely on the grid and gives us a little insight, doesn't he? Saying it is very, very slippery out there.
Very slippery indeed, and you know, there are spots of rain keep coming down. There's these gusts of wind. They've got to contend with that, and those guys have got the pressure on them because they're the first ones, hopefully, into turn one. And as he just said there, he doesn't know what level of grip he's actually got underneath him. Rubens seems quite calm and quite chilled out. I think we might be in for a good race from Rubens.
I think he picked the wrong tyres, didn't he, last time out, and Michael Schumacher was on a different set. It might have been the smartest thing that Rubens Barrichello ever did, because Michael doesn't get it wrong very often, does he?
He doesn't get it wrong very often, but you know what, during qualifying he actually made a couple of mistakes, but he still managed to pull off a sensational lap to put himself on pole position.
Just looking at Ferrari's on top there, I mean, are they unbeatable? Are they going to race away with everything? I mean, these sort of conditions are going to test them and everybody.
Well, they are going to test everybody, but what we see now is that the grid is getting a little bit closer, especially up that front end. Williams are only about 0.4, half a second away from the front row. If they just do even 2/10 a lap, 3/10 a lap, they're still going to pull away over the duration. But Ferrari, it's such a fantastic operation.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Just hearing that Kimi Räikkönen is going to actually start from the pit lane. Here we are then on the verge of the first Grand Prix in the desert and the first in the Middle East. Front three rows, Ferrari, BMW, and Williams and the BARs side by side for Britain. Jensen Button starting in 6th place. David Coulthard has just made the top 10 in the McLaren. So far this year, well, no one has managed to beat the Ferraris, beat the pole sitter Michael Schumacher. He scored 20 out of 20 with victories in Australia and Malaysia coming here to Bahrain. But Juan Pablo Montoya is promising to charge to that first corner, that 1 kilometre straight. It is very slippery. They're going to be storming round the sand dunes in the Bahrain Grand Prix.